Hello, fifth graders, and welcome to week 2 of your reading lessons. Today we're going to finish reading our Explorer's book, Triumphs and Troubles, and our objective today is I can identify organizational structure. So we're going to read pages 26 through 31 today, and this will be a new section and then a conclusion to the text that we're reading. So go ahead and take out your book. Make sure you have your book in your packet with you so you can follow along in the text and then be ready to answer those text-dependent questions. I'm going to go ahead and get my book ready. And you'll notice in our books here that we are reading a section that comes to us from Australia about Burke and Wills. Please make sure you are following along in your own text as it is being read to you.
Burke and Wills. On August 20th, 1860, crowds cheered as the Victorian exploring expedition left Royal Park in Melbourne, Australia. The explorers were aiming to make the first ever crossing of Australia from south to north. Robert Burke and his second in command, William Wills, led the expedition.
Oh, I'm sorry, I need to go back a page here. I forgot that bottom section.
What do you think? Was Burke the right leader? Burke had been an officer in the Australian Army and the police, so he was a trained leader. He had no experience as an explorer, though, and Burke was famous for getting lost, even in his hometown. Terrible conditions. Conditions for the explorers were terrible. It was extremely hot in the day and freezing at night. Tiny black flies got in their noses, mouths, ears, and even their eyes. Rats nibbled the explorers' toes at night, and there were scorpions, venomous snakes, and mosquitoes. The expedition was also weighed down by more than 20 tons of equipment, including useless items such as a Chinese gong and a heavy dining table. The explorers struggled to cover 18 miles, 30 kilometers, per day. Cooper's Creek. After 3 months, the exhausted explorers reached Cooper's Creek, not even halfway to the north coast. This was the traditional territory of the Yandrawanda people. The explorers set up camp. They used as much of the creek's precious water as they liked, and they let their animals dirty the stream so that anyone farther down could not use it. But the Yandrawanda did not complain. They could see the explorers were exhausted and needed to recover. The Yandrawanda even brought them gifts of fish and other food. On to the north coast. After a month at Cooper's Creek, Burke set off for the north coast with William Wills, John King, and Charles Gray. The others were told to wait 3 months at Cooper's Creek for their return. By February 1861, the 4 men had gotten within 3 miles, 5 kilometers, of the north coast. Mangrove swamps blocked their way, and they turned back. Gray, who was exhausted, died on the way home, and when the others finally stumbled into camp at Cooper's Creek, they found that the rest of the expedition had left that morning. The deaths of Burke and Wills. The 3 remaining explorers now survived partly on food that had been buried by the rest of the expedition before they left. They had left instructions on a tree about where the supplies were buried. This is now known as the dig tree. When the supplies ran low, the explorers were given food by the Yandrawanda. One day, Burke feared the Yandrawanda would steal expedition property, and he drove them off with a pistol shot. They did not return. Burke and Wills both died on about June 30th, and the only survivor of the expedition was King, who was looked after by the Yandrawanda.
All right, so we have to decide whether this was a triumph or was it just trouble?
Triumph. Burke, Wills, and King reached within 3 miles, 5 kilometers, of the north coast. If they had returned to Cooper's Creek just a few hours earlier, the rest of the expedition would still have been there, and they would have made it back to Melbourne alive. Or trouble. Burke put his ambition to make history ahead of the safety of his men. He also treated the Yandrawanda with contempt. He used water from Cooper's Creek, camped on their territory, and took their food, then shot at them. Even then, the Yandrawanda looked after King until the search party arrived.
All right, now we get to the conclusion of the book, so it's going to kind of summarize what we've read about so far.
Explorers. Triumphs or troubles? Many explorers became heroes back at home, sometimes even if they failed. Scott of the Antarctic is a hero to many British people, despite reaching the South Pole after his rival and then dying with all his men on the way back. But were the explorers of the past really heroes? Triumphs. Wealth. Exploration brought many countries great wealth. Spain, for example, became Europe's richest nation because of the treasure from its territories in the Americas. Each year, a treasure fleet brought gold, silver, jewels, pearls, and other valuables back to Spain. Triumphs. Territory. Exploration allowed countries to expand their territory. Explorers paved the way for Britain to occupy lands in Africa, Asia, and Australia, for example. These new territories provided Britain with raw materials, such as rubber and oil, and they were also places to sell British goods. The empire's strength. Do you know that the colonies produce over half the world's rubber and a third of the tin? That they are rich in sugar, tea, coffee, cocoa, and fruits? That colonial copper, gold, and oil are increasingly important. Troubles. Land thieves. The lands explorers found already belonged to other people. They occupied the lands without permission, often by force. Sometimes the explorers enslaved the local people, and the wealth they sent home was not theirs to take. Troubles. Spreaders of disease. Explorers often brought new diseases with them. Millions of people died as a result. In many places, these diseases decimated the local population. To the people whose lands they reached, many explorers were definitely not heroes. At the time, few explorers thought they were doing anything wrong. For example, they did not know their diseases would kill millions. But does that make it acceptable? What do you think? Can we judge the triumphs and troubles of explorers based on things we know, but they did not?
All right, so some questions for you to ponder at the end there. We should judge those explorers for the things that they did and what happened to the people of the lands that they were overtaking. There was definitely some trouble, and there was also some triumph. You get to decide which you think it was in each case. Till next time, stay safe out there.